They say chips were invented when someone sent back his fried potatoes, complaining the slices were too thick. The insulted chef cut them paper thin and fried them to a crisp. So, pride, not necessity, was the mother of this invention. Potato chips have since become the consummate snack food. They have to be made with fresh potatoes no more than 24 hours old, otherwise, the chips will have black spots. After a brushing machine removes the dirt, the potatoes travel along a water canal to the peeler. They tumble around and around against the peeler's abrasive rollers until the skins come off. This machine can peel 12,000 pounds of potatoes per hour. Next stop, a machine that separates the potatoes by size. The small ones fall below to be rinsed. The larger ones stay on top to be cut, then they fall down to the rinser too. Next, the potatoes go through slicers. The slicer's blades are adjustable. They can be set to different thicknesses or to different shapes, to slice ripple chips for example. The centrifugal force created by the spinning throws the potatoes against the sharp blades. To make regular chips, they cut slices 61/100ths of an inch thick. An average potato will yield about 36 chips. Finally, it's time to wash the potato slices. They spin inside a giant barrel of cold, fresh water for about a minute. Then, like at the car wash, the slices pass under an air blower to dry up the excess water. The fryer contains canola oil boiling at 375 degrees Fahrenheit. It takes just 3 minutes to fry the potato slices into potato chips. As the chips exit the fryer on the conveyor belt, the excess oil drips off. Next, a shower of salt. The chips then move on to the sorter. An electronic camera identifies any chips that have brown spots or other defects. The camera then triggers the thin pipe directly above that bum chip to blow it off the conveyor belt with air pressure. Elsewhere in the factory, they're making another popular snack food, cheese puffs. They take corn flour and mix it with water. An extrusion machine forces the mixture through round holes. When the snake-like streams come out the other end, a knife cuts them into pieces. The heat in the machine then causes the flour in those pieces to explode, creating slightly curled puffs. They spray the puffs with a mixture of canola oil, powdered cheese, and natural colorings. A revolving drum mixes it all together. Back in the chips department, they spray the potato chips with powdered seasonings which simulate flavors such as barbecue or salt and vinegar. The next machine separates and weighs the portions to be packaged. The chips drop into bags that are then heat-sealed. It's taken about 15 minutes to go from raw potato to potato chips, a lot longer than it takes to eat them. When Maria Antoinette said, "Let them eat cake," she probably didn't mean those. Many jelly logs, still in the realm of treats for the sweet tooth, snack cakes have been revolutionary. They're just the right size for a quick snack, and individually wrapped to stay fresh. Veteran snackers will recognize this as a jelly log, a sponge cake rolled up with jam and a creamy filling. First, the factory bakes the sponge cake. It comes out of the oven in continuous strips. Those moving arms align the strips to receive the fillings. One machine then does it all. First, it deposits an even layer of cream filling, then blobs of strawberry jam. Now the rolling begins. One side of the cake strip runs against a metal guide. This lifts and folds over the edge. Then the cake strips run against a second guide which rolls it over some more. Now the machine cuts the continuous strip into separate cakes. Then an automated roller completes the logs. The jelly logs go onto a conveyor belt that positions them closer together, aligning them for the next phases of production. They travel through a waterfall of strawberry-flavored syrup. This sticky coating acts as a tasty glue to adhere the shredded coconut that showers them next. The conveyor belt shakes off the excess, which, like the excess strawberry syrup before, gets fed through the machine again. Now if all this doesn't have your sweet tooth tingling yet, the next snack cake will. It's a chocolate cream cake covered in a chocolate coating. Production begins in the mixer where they combine eggs, a vegetable oil mixture, flour, sugar, water, glucose, a liquid. Powder the mixture, blends the ingredients at high speed for 1 minute. Then it pumps the batter to a machine called the automated depositor, which squirts the batter into cake molds. The conveyor belt transports the mold pans to the oven. The batter bakes for 7 minutes to achieve just the right texture. There's a very specific heating pattern. Once the pans exit the oven, a robot flips the cakes upside down onto a conveyor belt. It stacks the empty mold pans onto another conveyor that sends them back for more batter. Now the cakes flip right side up onto a wire conveyor belt. Air circulating between the wires cools the cakes. The next machine aligns the cakes in position for the next phases of production. First, thin blades saw the cakes in half. Then suction tubes remove the tops and place them next to the bottoms. Next, the machine drops a portion of cream filling on each bottom. The cream is about the consistency of margarine. As the feeder tube above each cake delivers it, a wire cutter splices off a piece about 1/4 inch thick. Then the suction tubes put the tops back on. Now the cakes pass through a shower of hot chocolate-flavored liquid. This coats the top and sides. At the same time, the cakes travel through a bath of the liquid which coats the underside. Air jets blow off the excess. The cakes pass through a cooling tunnel. This hardens the chocolate-flavored coating. Then it's off to the packaging department. The cakes file into a sheet of polypropylene film. The machine seals and then cuts the film between each cake. This keeps each one fresh until snack time. How and when the first pretzel came to be depends on whom you ask. One story tells of a monk baking rewards for children who were pious. Today's bakeries still fold the dough to resemble arms crossed in prayer, but they do it much faster, granting tasty wishes to a lot more snackers. Although hard pretzels are more common, this company makes the more traditional soft-baked ones. To make enough dough for 4,870 pretzels, a worker first blends shortening, sugar, and salt in a huge mixer. The machine automatically adds yeast, corn syrup, 6,200 liters of cold water, and 345 kilos of flour. The cold water helps make the dough elastic so workers can shape it before it hardens. A worker then opens the mixer and slows the blades to help the dough fall out. He splits the batch on a table, then creates chunks that go into a tank called a hopper. It feeds an auger that channels the dough chunks through little guillotines. The blades chop the chunks into 70-gram balls to make small pretzels or 140-gram balls for large pretzels. 2 conveyor belts squeeze them into 40-centimeter-long segments called noodles. Another machine now grabs the ends of each noodle and twists them over each other to create the pretzel's 3 signature holes to keep this knot from unraveling. The plate then gently flips the pretzel dough onto another plate below. That plate carefully flips the doughy creations onto a 36-meter-long conveyor belt. The raw pretzels now travel on the conveyor for 14 minutes, the time it takes for the dough to rise. Next they move through showers of liquid sodium hydroxide heated to 82 degrees Celsius that seals in the moisture so the pretzel will be chewy when you eat it. They go into an oven that's about the length of a city bus. As they enter, flames sear and harden the outside. This prevents the bottoms from sticking to the mesh conveyor belt during baking. After about 3.5 minutes at 293 degrees Celsius, the pretzels are piping hot and golden brown. They drop onto a long conveyor where they gradually cool on their way to the next step, a trip through a freezer that's longer than 7 Olympic-sized swimming pools. After 30 minutes at minus 28 degrees Celsius, the pretzels are rock solid and ready for packaging. But first, a camera scans them so that a computer can track each pretzel and guide a robotic arm to pick it up. This arm is one of 5 operating at separate points on the line. The robots process 1 pretzel per second and clean up after each other until the belt is picked clean. The pretzels then fall through a sliding gate landing on a conveyor that whisks them off to the next step. There, a machine drops a packet of coarse salt into each bin of 6 pretzels. A mechanical arm nudges the pretzels over to make room for it. The salt packet lets you season your pretzel the traditional way before warming it up at home. The machine blows open plastic bags with compressed air. Mechanical arms push the pretzels and salt packet inside. A robot arm then places each bag into a cardboard box. The printing on this. The pastry takes on a brownish color as organic palm shortening and organic granulated sugar are added. The flour and water are piped into the blender. Barrel spiraling mixers blend and knead the dough to the desired consistency. Next, it's into a hopper that feeds the dough between two rollers. They squeeze and flatten the dough into a sheet that's about 8/10 of an inch thick. A conveyor moves the toaster pastry dough forward to sets of larger rollers. They apply serious pressure to roll the dough much thinner. Wheels at the sides fold back the dough as the width expands. A dusting of flour to the rollers keeps things from getting too sticky. Coming off the final rollers, the thickness of the dough has been reduced to 2/10 of an inch. At another station, they've whipped up a batch of cherry pomegranate jam. The jam is hearty and thick so it won't run as nozzles pump the jam onto the rolled pastry sheet. Each toaster pastry receives 3 strings of jam. This depositor system fills 10 tarts at a time. It works out to 390 tarts a minute. A second sheet of dough heads towards the jam-filled one. A spiked roller punches holes to prevent steam during baking. Without these holes, the pressure would build and the toaster pastries would explode. The top sheet of pastry now merges with the bottom one. The conveyor belts move at exactly the same speed, so the top pastry lands in perfect alignment on the jam-filled one. A cylinder with a brass grid pattern bears down on the pastry to compress it between the jam fillings. This forms pockets of jam. A cylindrical blade slices the pastry into individual tarts. A device pulls off the side trimmings. The toaster pastries travel through a 150-foot-long convection oven heated to 300 degrees Fahrenheit. The operator keeps a close watch for leaking jam, which would be a sign of bad seals in the pastry pockets. He rejects any with leaks. He also keeps an eye on the color as the pastries brown. They shouldn't be too dark or too light. Fresh out of the mixer, the pink frosting now flows onto a revolving belt that spreads it onto the toaster pastries at just the right thickness. They've added a bit of starch to the icing, and it's this starch that allows the icing to harden and set so it won't melt and drip into the toaster during toasting. They sprinkle granulated colored sugar onto the toaster pastries. They call this topping the crunch lits. The crunch lits add both flavor and texture to the pastry. Once the toaster pastries transfer from one conveyor to another, a breaker roller snaps them at the crimp line to separate them into groups of 2. The completed tarts head towards the packaging line. An operator does a visual inspection as they pass by. Mechanical arms push the tarts into aluminum wrapping. Hot rollers seal and cut the wrap at the ends. This wrapping preserves the tarts for 8 months. No preservatives needed. Suctioning arms grab and open cartons to accept the foil-wrapped toaster pastries. It takes about an hour to manufacture a box of toaster pastries, and now it's time for a toast. Legend has it that chocolate chip cookies were invented in 1930 by an American innkeeper who ran out of baker's chocolate. She improvised by breaking a semi-sweet chocolate bar into small pieces. Instead of melting, the chocolate merely softened, dotting the cookie with chocolate chips. They look homemade and they taste homemade, but this home is a factory. Each ingredient goes into an industrial-size mixer, starting with white sugar, then brown sugar, then butter. The mixer thoroughly blends these first ingredients until the butter becomes soft and creamy and the sugars are evenly dispersed. Then it's time for the headliner. Chocolate chips. They're semi-sweet, which is a mixture of bitter and sweet chocolate. Next, flour, followed by baking soda to make the dough rise, and salt to add flavor. The final ingredients are whole eggs beaten combined with vanilla made from beans harvested in Madagascar, Africa. Mixing resumes until everything's well blended, which usually takes about 5 minutes. The company closely guards recipe specifics, but if you're curious, you could probably figure them out by multiplying the ingredients of a home recipe to the yield of a production batch. Workers transfer the cookie dough to a machine called the former. It pushes the dough through round dies, producing row upon row of round pieces weighing 41 grams each, one of several sizes the factory produces. The factory then flash freezes the dough rounds for sale to food service customers such as restaurants and hotels, which bake the cookies in their own kitchens. The freeze tunnel uses liquid nitrogen. frigid temperature. The passing D rounds solidify in approximately 5 minutes. Exiting the freeze tunnel, the D rounds pass under a metal detector to ensure they don't contain any metal particles. This safety measure is standard practice in the food industry. The packaging system is entirely automated. The first station erects the box. The second station lines it with plastic. A conveyor belt, meanwhile, feeds the frozen unbaked cookies onto automated scales. Once a scale hits the per-box weight, feeding pauses. The bottom swings open and the cookies drop into the box now waiting directly underneath. The next stations seal and label the boxes, which workers then load onto pallets. The pallets go into a storage freezer where they stay until it's time to ship them out by freezer truck to the customer. This company also sells gift tins of cookies online and by catalog. For that market, they bake the cookies in-house. Workers lay out the dough rounds 5 centimeters apart on trays lined with parchment paper. This prevents sticking, making it easy to remove the baked cookies without breaking them. The dough rounds are nearly 4 centimeters wide by 2½ centimeters high. As they bake, they flatten out and double in diameter. The trays remain in the oven for 7 minutes at 150 degrees Celsius. A turntable inside rotates them so that the cookies bake evenly throughout the tray. A few cookies per batch go to the quality control tester, who unfortunately doesn't get to conduct the assessment by eating the samples. Rather, the tester measures the diameter and height to ensure consistency in size and chip content. In the online and catalog order assembly area, workers line the bottom part of the gift tin with a decorative cellophane bag. Then they carefully layer the correct number of fresh cookies inside in a staggered configuration. This not only creates a nice presentation, it also prevents damage in transit. They close the bag with a gold twist tie to seal in the freshness, close up the tin, then pack it for shipping. This is how to give a gift of homemade chocolate chip cookies with